At tonight's show, we have Melvin Nix with us, and we are going to be discussing what is energy. So, Melvin, why don't you, first off, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Got to chat with you last night, had a great conversation with you. Looking forward to tonight, but why don't you go ahead and start off and let everyone know who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into tonight's topic.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much, Joshua, for having me part of the community and for having me on the show. As you made reference to last night, it was very enlightening. I had a ball. A little bit about myself. My name is Melvin Nix, and my day job, I am an animator, video producer, and my wife and I have a company, so we do a lot of really cool stuff in that regard. And the rest of my life is spent as being a spiritual teacher, whereby I explore, different concepts of the universe, how things work. And I'm also a Reiki master. So I went through and got all of my attunements, and I've done Reiki for myself as well as others. And so it's really been a lifelong path of spiritual learning and enrichment for myself. And as I've been learning things, I've been endeavoring to teach others. And I started a channel called Putting on the New You. Is actually a broadcast called Putting on the New You, whereby I teach about the concepts of how to live life through your spirit, because I believe that we all are spiritual beings having an earthly experience. And when you begin to connect with who you truly are as a spirit, that is in fact when you begin to see some awesome things happen in your life. So it's been an honor and a privilege just getting to know you and to see how many similarities we have as far as our backgrounds and the things that we're interested in. I've been looking forward to the show.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the show. So, we're going to be discussing energy, and we're going to be discussing it from more of a spiritual and metaphysical aspect tonight, as we're discussing it. And so, why don't you go ahead and start us off on that topic and get things rolling, and we'll get into this.
Okay. Uh, Energy is very fascinating. One of the things that I know it's kind of become a cliche, but it's really true when you begin to study things and you endeavor to grow spiritually, you will discover that the phrase everything is energy is literally the truth. And when we talk about everything, I'm talking about you, I'm talking about the things that you own, I'm talking about the universe itself. Every single thing that is in existence is made from energy. And when you begin to study and understand those concepts, you literally can see how not only energy influences and affects our lives, but how energy is really moving in and throughout the universe at a constant rate and creating and sustaining life as we know it. And when we get into talks about energy, I think it's very important for people to understand that energy is more than just a concept. It's literally what makes us all up. And when we talk about that, I like to bring the universe into this discussion, because when you deal with the universe, there are certain things that I like to ascribe as attributes to the universe that really I think will help it to make sense. Foremost, we all have to understand that the universe is not just, you know, stars and planets, but the
Right.
universe is intelligent. It's very intelligent, and it thinks. And not only does it think, but it responds to our thought because it is so alive. And when a person begins to elevate spiritually and work with the universe and principles that govern the universe, you begin to see and understand how living it is and how you can actually develop a relationship with the universe. I know it seems like a broad concept, but the more that you begin to realize and understand some of these things, your eyes kind of tend to open up and you have lots of aha moments.
Absolutely. Man, this is definitely one of those subjects that when you start talking about energy as far as on a universal level and what it really is, it opens up a whole new understanding of not not just about the universe, but about who you are personally and how you function. And so, uh, like we was talking last night, we got into talking about several different kinds of energy, such as the chakras, chi energy, kundalini energies, and stuff. Which we'll go more into some of those in the future. Um, I need to shut that down. But the uh, the aspects of energy on a spiritual level is just profound.
Yeah. You know, when one of my favorite, I'm a big Star Wars, and in The Empire Strikes Back, when Yoda is teaching Luke about the Force, he's
Yes.
giving us all a great education.
Oh, yes.
Because yeah, he's when he really starts showing Luke how to really get in tune, with the Force and to learn its ways and just kind of, resolve himself to almost just yielding and flowing with the Force rather than trying to direct it. And that's how we have to begin to think about the universe and about energy, because it's literally the same thing. That was a very, very cool way to integrate such a powerful concept in a movie, where he's raising an X-Wing and raising rocks and stuff. But the principle behind
Absolutely.
everything he's talking about, not that we'll be moving things with our mind, but when you really begin to study how things are made of energy and matter, you can kind of see how you can influence and infect your life, on a small scale. I don't believe we'll be moving cars and things of that nature, but you can begin to attract more positive things and situations into your life and begin to grow as a result of it.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things like we was talking about with some of the stuff in our conversation last night. We was as far as attracting things to you, it goes along the series that I'm doing with Demian on the spiritual laws. The next one that we're going to be discussing is the law of attraction. And we started off the series with the law of thinking, and the way you think puts out an energy field out into the universe that works on drawing these things into you. And so it's every bit as much of the energy that we put out there as what will come back to us.
And to that point that you just made, I want to ask you in the audience this question just to really make you think. Have you ever wondered why we have the capacity to imagine? Think about that. Why is it that we have an imagination?
Well, that's one I've never really sat down and thought of. I just know that my imagination is very vivid.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'm only limited by what I'm able to imagine.
That's a limitation that we all have. But the thing that I find very interesting, because I asked myself that question, I was doing some studying, and you were talking about the law of attraction. Well, when you really get into energy work and understanding how the universe is basically energy and how those properties are made up, we literally can create into our lives. You were talking about the law of attraction, and anyone who's seen The Secret is a little bit familiar with that. I think they do a good job of some of the concepts, but then there's others that I think they could have done a better job.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but when you deal with the law of attraction, it's really about dealing with how the mind works and the level in which your mind attracts similar. Not necessarily that if I think about a BMW all day, want to show up in my driveway. It's more about at the level of thought, whatever I focus on will continue in a particular loop in a sense. Like if I think about a positive thing, then that's going to attract similar thought.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I've seen that happen in a lot of people. When people put positive thoughts out there, then that brings positivity into their lives. And when someone is constantly putting that negative energy out there, it seems that everything around them is always negative, no matter what. actually had an example of this a few weeks ago. I had just out of the blue, a friend showed up at my door. Their car had broke down. They knocked on my door, said, "Hey, can I come in?" I'm like, "Yeah, come on in." They said I need to make a phone call and get someone to come help me with my vehicle. And I said, "All right, well, come on in, get warm." It was a cold day, and so they came in and they were talking, and everything coming off of them was negative. And they were talking about, "Oh, well, I was supposed to have my check today and it didn't show up. It's all screwed up. This went wrong, this went wrong, this went wrong." And all they was focused on was what was going wrong. And they continued to have things keep going wrong for them.
Yeah. That's literally how that works. And oftentimes when I've talked to people about manifesting things, I'll tell them this. I'll say that if you ever want to understand how the law of attraction works, think about the last time you worried about it. Because check this out. When you lay out and really study what happens when you worry about anything, this is what happens. It starts with a thought. Well,
Yes.
I'm going to have a bad day today. Now, when you have that thought, your emotion kick in, because that's what the brain does. The brain is the most sophisticated computer in the world, and we're going to get into a little bit of that later on. But when you have that one thought, biochemically, you start aligning yourself up to experience things that bring about a negative situation. Then the law of attraction kicks in. Now you're thinking and feeling in a pattern that's negative. And so if you stay in that loop, you're going to have more thoughts. You're going to begin to attract more situations that are in alignment with that pattern of thinking. And the reason why is because, as I said a few minutes ago, the universe is alive and the universe responds. And the way in which the universe responds to us is through our thoughts. And that's what made me bring up that question. Why is it that we have an imagination? And the reason I personally believe we have an imagination is because it allows us to create from the raw material of spirit, which is what the universe is made out of. When we talk about energy, I like to simultaneously refer to energy as spirit.
Absolutely.
And spiritual substance. So when you imagine anything, if you really break that down, you start with an image in your mind. And as you hold that image, you especially know this, Joshua, because you meditate. So when you focus and you concentrate on that image or whatever that's going to be, you begin to create things and you begin to see a vivid picture of what that is. You can almost feel it in front of you.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Your emotions kick in. And that's literally how we begin to create reality from nothing. So I believe that the reason why we have an imagination is so that we can live as creators here on this planet. Because if you think about this, I don't know, you and I were talking last night, and I shared with you that I came out of the Christian background, and I was a student of the Bible, and I in the Bible for years. But if you think about the fact that I'll use the Garden of Eden as a reference. So the Garden of Eden, and really just this planet, has always had the exact same raw material. Right. Like steel didn't fall from the sky to us, right? Gold didn't, right, just come in raindrops. The earth has always had every resource that we've always needed. But right, man had to figure out a way to utilize it. So if you think about an airplane, the technology to create an airplane came after a man thought about how can we have traveled through the air. Now, the raw materials to build an airplane and to work with physics, those materials were here from day one, whenever day one was. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like airplanes fell out of the sky and we learned how to fly them. No, man had a thought, and man began to work with and collaborate with the universe and with the raw materials that we have here. Now we have airplanes. Now we have the internet. Now we have so many things, but they came from the thought. And that's why I believe we have an imagination.
Okay. We are having just a few slight little technical glitches. There is, your camera done a little weird thing where it lagged for a few moments, and it looks like it's trying to catch up.
Okay.
And so there was a lag in your camera between what you were saying, so there was a lag in the audio and the video for a second. But I think we're caught up now.
Okay. Did hopefully it caught the last thing I said. I don't know if I need to repeat that. I can if I need to.
Why don't you go ahead and repeat it just to make sure we did catch it? I mean, we heard you talking about the airplane and stuff, but just the last few words that you said there.
Yeah, basically, I was just reiterating the fact that I believe we have an imagination in order to allow us to create with energy, to create with the raw materials of the universe.
Excellent.
And to begin to understand how to arrange and align and give life and form to those things from the formless substance of energy.
I'm absolutely with you on that. I totally completely agree with you on that.
And so when you start looking at energy, and I like to think of how in various cultures, when they talk about certain things like chi or ki or prana, or, from a biblical sense, the breath of life, that's all referring to, if you look up any of those words, they all say basically the same thing: vital life.
Right.
And the life principle that animates and gives life to everything, right? So the universe is made out of what I like to refer to. I know we were talking about energy, but I like to give the label of energy the word spirit. I like to call energy.
We didn't hear what you said right there. That it cut out for a second. The last word.
Oh, I was saying that I like to refer to energy as spirit.
Okay.
And when you deal with the properties of energy, and I was talking about ki and prana and chi, how that they basically, if you look those words up, refer to the same thing: the vital life.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. I was just waiting for you to continue on. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. So, so I think fundamentally, once you really get your mind wrapped around how the universe works and the energy that, the universe is made of, how with your imagination and learning how to get into alignment with its principles and concepts, you can begin to create the life that you want and really begin to see some cool things happen in your life. I'll tell a little story of something funny that happened. I was visiting my sister. She was I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and my sister was living in Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is about a couple hours. And so I was visiting her close to Christmas, maybe, gosh, this was like 10 years ago. And we were kind of having a conversation about this kind of stuff because she was asking me a lot of questions. She knew I was into energy working. We were in Blockbuster, and there was a Blockbuster that was still open. And so
that definitely means it was several years ago.
Yes, Blockbuster was a retail chain where you could rent videos, via VHS tape or DVD and CDs. I don't know how young the youngest person is that's watching. Anyway, we were in a Blockbuster and we were talking about energy work and such, and she was really wanting to find that Eddie Murphy movie, Norbit. She said, "Hey, have you ever seen that movie?" I said, "No." And so she was telling me that Norbit was this great movie, and there was this particular part of the movie she wanted me to see in regards to a relationship that Norbit was having with the young lady who was in the movie. I don't remember her name. But anyway, we checked the store and they did not have a copy of Norbit. So we were just walking around. We looked everywhere. The associate was like, "Yeah, check over here, check there." And we were all over the place and we couldn't find the movie. And so she was like, "Well, this is the only movie I wanted to watch, so let's go." As we were getting ready to leave, she made a comment. She said, "I really want to see that movie." So this was probably like 20 to 30 seconds before we reached the front of the store. As soon as we got to where the front desk was, someone had literally just dropped off. And so the Blockbuster person was like, "Guys, I don't know what happened, but some kind of a way, you really wanted to see that movie, and here it is."
Absolutely.
And so it showed up.
She put out that energy that she wanted that, and it came back. And we are still having some lag issues with the camera, but we're still getting the audio.
Okay.
When we watch this back, we'll both probably laugh a little bit.
Oh, do we have the max headroom thing going on with the, you know?
Well, what will happen is all of a sudden it will freeze for a couple seconds, and all of a sudden it will speed up, almost like someone turned it on fast forward.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have no idea why that's happened.
I've honestly never seen it happen before either. But if you hear me laugh, it's because it's kind of funny.
Oh, great.
It's really
That's
animated.
I
Com-
think
Coming from an
we
animator,
brought,
it's animated.
yeah, we've brought a lot of energy to this discussion tonight, so we're influencing the the electron.
Absolutely.
We are using the force to manipulate screens. I'm a big nerd, so I can keep going with it.
Oh, so am I. I mean, we can really dive down into that whole conversation at some point in time.
Yeah. So going back to energy, I think it's interesting though when you look at different practices like yoga, for example. Yoga focuses on the breath, and with the breath, they understand how that it brings vital life force to the body. And I've taken some yoga classes before. I'm not like a regular practitioner because I'm like 6'2" and close to 300 pounds. Uh-oh,
Everything
something
okay?
in my office fell down. I think we have a ghost or gremlins. Anyway,
They sense the energy. They're
um,
wanting to hang out.
right? Let's see. It fell on my table here. But anyway, I was just going to say that with yoga, you're focusing on the breath, and what that does is taps into spirit, taps into the vital life force, and it channels it to certain parts of your body through those. And I find it interesting that their focus is on the breath. When you practice Tai Chi,
Yep.
you're learning how to move the breath and move energy through your body and to flow with energy as you're doing the various poses. And again, the focus is on breathing.
Right.
And so
Same
when you
same
get
thing with a lot
into,
of meditation techniques and stuff. When you look at things like the Wim Hof technique of meditation,
yeah,
or holistic breathing, um, it's all about breath control in order to channel energies to achieve a certain state.
and I was even learning in my shamanic study that there's what's called a shamanic state of consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
where you can get into breath work to the point to where, when you're going to do any type of journey work, you want to be in a semi-trance, or even with astral projection. And I know we're not going to talk a lot about that kind of stuff, but you have to be in a particular state of mind in order to have a particular spiritual experience. I'll say that. And so I find it interesting that all of those different practices focus on breathing. And even when you deal with, going back to the Bible and the biblical concept, God formed man's body out of the dust of the ground, but man is not his body. What it says next is he breathed into man's nostril
Right.
the breath of life, and
Yes.
man became a living soul.
Right.
And so I think that's interesting that no matter how you want to label it, it's all about the breath. But at the end of the day, the breath is working with spirit or energy.
Right. And I think I said holistic breathing. I meant to say holotropic breathing,
Oh,
which is a form of breathing that you can use to enter into a shamanic state.
okay. I'm not too familiar with that. I think I've read that term somewhere. Do you mind like elaborating on that just a little bit?
Honestly, I've done very little of it. A lot of my experiences on entering into shamanic states are mainly through using frequencies and vibrations or rhythmic drumming,
Sure.
which is actually channeling energy. But I use kind of the normal breathing meditation techniques that you would see used in yoga, or like in your Tai Chi, stuff along those lines. But there's the holotropic breathing. It's not something that I've really dived into. It's something I've been wanting to, but it's one of those It's definitely something that you need to practice and really get into before you can really enter into the shamanic states with it. The other way to enter into the shamanic states is also, from just using some of the sacred sacraments, and that is from the energy that are in those plants is what actually takes you there.
Yeah. Like I haven't done anything with the plants, which I'm looking forward to at some point in my life, having that experience. But I think that um, when I've learned journey work and things of that nature, and even with Reiki, you're dealing with sending and receiving
Right.
spirit and energy to work with, you know, to work with chakras and such, but it's all based around the same principle. You are literally working with and manipulating spirit. And going back to shamanism just a little bit, the thing that I find interesting is in all of my shamanic studies, they refer to the universe as the web of life, how everything is alive and everything has spirit, and you can communicate with it. And the shaman is able to go into a particular state and learn how to communicate with the spirit of a tree, or to find out what's going on in the environment and things of that nature. So when we deal with looking at it from that parallel, they are literally communicating with the universe, as we have explained earlier, and working with energy, spirit.
Everything's good. I'm looking at some stuff over here. I'm trying to debunk if any of the technical issues is something going on my end that I can figure out and fix.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
Oh, and I'm just kind of
everything's going good so far. So
awesome. And I'm just taking a little bit of a pause too, in case you want to interject, because I don't want to,
um
do too much of the talking.
yeah, I mean, as far as the like last night I told you, I said I don't have experience with Reiki, but I have done some energy work. And even when I'm doing things along the lines of working with the plant medicines and stuff to enter into shamanic states, your breathing is still very important during that. And controlling your breathing and working your breath work through that can actually allow you to even dive deeper in than if you're not focusing in on it. I've had sessions where I wasn't as focused in on my breath work as I should have been. I didn't go as deep. Sessions where I was really focused in on my breath work, mind blown to levels that I have never experienced before.
And what I've learned is the reason that the breath work is so important is because it allows for your brain and your body to get into a relaxed state. And
Yes.
oftentimes the body gets in the way of spiritual, so when you are trying to communicate with your higher power or your higher self, even when you're meditating or things of that nature, if your body is too busy, it gets the mind busy, and it kind of interrupts the flow, spirit.
Absolutely.
So what the breath work does is allow for you to put yourself in a state to where your body relaxes, your mind relaxes, and then the spirit begins to, kind of like in the shamanic journey, where it may start out in your mind a little bit, but then you just find yourself into a whole nother
Absolutely.
vibration, a whole nother plane.
Yes, absolutely. And like I know when I first started studying meditation through martial arts, back when I was in my early teens, the first thing they told me was focus on your breath, control your breathing. Those were the very first things they said to focus on. Nothing else. That was it. Focus on your breathing, focus on the breath, control it, and from there, that was the key to starting to learn to control the energies, especially then when we got into actually working in kung fu. The form of kung fu that I took was Xing Yi Chen, and it deals with the internal energies, it deals with the chi energies. And we as we was working with it, the key was no matter how intense that we're getting in a fight, we had to control our breathing. That was always one of the key focuses, to be able to keep the energies and focus the energies that we needed. Breathing was essential.
Yeah.
And controlled breathing, not just, all right, I'm not being choked out, I'm still breathing, I'm alive, but it was controlling and very purposeful breathing.
I've taken a few martial arts. I didn't really get into like keto or any of the internal martial arts. I was doing taekwondo, but I've always been a Bruce Lee fan.
Mm-hmm.
And not just from his movies, but from his philosophy in his life. And one of the things that he said in his movie Enter the Dragon was, I think the old teacher kind of brought him off to the side. He was teaching a young pupil. I don't know if you remember that movie.
Yes, I do.
But yes, when the old master came over to Bruce, and Bruce essentially was saying that he practices so much that when it's time for a fight, it hits all by
Yeah.
Because he puts so much energy and focus into his training, into his breathing, getting himself into alignment. And when he actually gets into a real fight, he basically just gets into a state of relaxation. And then his subconscious. And so all the things that he's trained him and conditioned himself to do, he basically just, when he's in a confrontation, slows down his breathing, gets his mind into a state of really not thinking about anything, and then he's just in the flow of things.
Right.
And that's how he beat a lot of people, because he understood that.
Absolutely. And that is really how you have to do it when you're in that kind of situation. Because if you're not controlling your breathing and you start to get nervous or anything, start to develop the anxieties or anything, I mean, you can very easily go to where you start to hyperventilate and you lose control, you lose focus. But all of that, when you start to hyperventilate, what's the first thing a medical professional tries to do? They try to get you to bring your breathing back in control and to focus on your breathing. And that's how I think a lot of people don't understand just how important breath work really is to controlling your energy.
Yeah. And to that point, you brought up hyperventilation and things of that nature. Well, what typically happens? You have a thought in your mind, and biochemically, you are telling your central nervous system and other systems in your to respond by hyperventilating or to, deal with a particular situation. And when we get into chakras, we'll really start talking about body-mind connection. But the ways in which you can, if you ever learn how to slow yourself down, how to breathe, energy, when you find yourself in those types of situations, you will be able to then be present in the moment.
Yes.
Present and fully aware. And then you can notice and see things that you may not have seen previously. There have been times I found in my life where I may have been, dealing with a situation and my mind's all over the place. And I tell myself, okay, take it down a notch, calm down, breathe for a second. And as soon as I get myself there, it's like the answer comes right to me. Or I'll notice something that I didn't see before. And the situation I'm able to resolve and move on with my day. And it's just amazing how.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've in the past, and still on occasions, not nearly as much now because I have learned how to control it. I dealt with a lot of severe anxiety issues and anxiety attacks. And the first thing that would ever happen when I was having an anxiety attack, in order to ground myself and bring myself out of it, I had to focus on the breathing, which as I focused in on the breathing, it allowed me to start to control the thoughts and to calm myself and to control everything and to bring everything back into that alignment, that I was able to ground myself and come out of that anxiety attack. And
Awesome.
And a lot of times you hear them talk about when someone is in a panic attack, they need to ground. and what you're doing when you're grounding is you're bringing your energies back into alignment, and you're focusing your energies the way that you need to. And I mean,
Absolutely.
a lot of times when I think about grounding, it reminds me of the technique called earthing, where you walk barefooted on dirt or grass, and you work your energetic fields through your body into the earth, and the earth's energetic fields in through you, and it creates a cycle. It creates a circuit.
I do that all the time. And even when like it's raining out, if I really want to just, if I'm really having a bad day or dealing with something, I go and I connect with the earth. I'll put my hands in some dirt, or, just go out into my backyard and just look at the trees, and that's so calming and soothing.
Well,
And it gets my energy back where it's.
I don't know if you know this, but trees have an enormous energetic field, and they have done studies on um, that trees are actually calming to people. So if you need to focus and you need to calm, go sit underneath a tree and allow your energy field to flow in and through the tree, and it will help bring you back into to space. And they found out that it's a very calming, peaceful practice. um
Now, when it's interesting you say that, because earlier when we were talking about how everything is literally energy, think about this. When you deal with the chakras, I don't want to give away too much because we'll talk about this later. But let's talk about the heart chakra for an example. All of the chakras have a corresponding, right? And color, when you really study out what it means scientifically, color is nothing more than a frequency that vibrates at a particular on the particular spectrum. So we're
right.
not literally seeing a color green. Our eyes are translating that frequency. And so what that frequency is doing is aligning our frequency back into tune with the frequency of being tranquil, with the frequency of being. So literally, when you were just talking about the tree having an energetic field, and if you look at how everything's made out of energy, in terms of energy, that's literally what you're doing. It's kind of like plugging a light into the wall. You are connecting to source. You're connecting to the source that's giving life, or if we talk in electronic terms, when I want my light bulb to come on, I plug into the source, allow source's energy to flow through that cable, and then I can put my light on.
Exactly.
Well, when we ground ourselves, we are literally connecting back to the earth, connecting back to source, and realigning our energy to function the way we are supposed to, because we weren't made to be a part of the rat race. We weren't made to always be in a state of stress. We were made to be in alignment. When
Right.
you look at the animal kingdom, they're not stressed out about paying bills. You know, when you see dolphins, they're not worried about, well, oh my God, is the ocean going to go away tomorrow? They just kind of live and they flow and they know what to do.
Right.
And that's what this is all about.
Right. Now, I do want to go back to something that you touched on there. You touched on color being frequency, and last night I brought up one of my favorite quotes in our conversation that we had. And the quote was from Nikola Tesla, and it says, if you want to
Yes,
understand the secrets of the universe, think in everything's in the terms of frequency and vibration. And the reason that quote is so important is because everything is made up of energy. Everything is. We've talked about that. This mug is made up of energy. It has an energetic field. It has, there's molecules that make this up, and they have an energetic field. They have a frequency and a vibration that they operate at. So when you start thinking of everything in the terms of frequency and vibrations, it affects everything in the world.
absolutely. Now, going back to maybe what, third, fourth, fifth. I'm trying to remember when in my science class that they started teaching us about properties of matter. And whenever that was, I'm sure everybody can kind of follow along here. But when you study the structure of an atom, it looks like a little ball. It has a nucleus in the middle,
Yep.
protons, neutrons, and then you have the electrons that orbit the atom itself. And how that, you take oxygen, which is made out of combination of atoms. And then if you add one more molecule to it, you can have water. Or if you add another molecule to it, you can have a poisonous gas.
Right.
But at that level of things, we're dealing with the atoms, which science have found out that atoms are basically empty, and they're more like intelligent rather than stuff, if that makes sense. And so when you look at how an atom that, you talked about your mug, that mug's basically composed of bits of atoms that are dense. That's why we can see it. That's why we can put it down on a table. But if you break it all the way down to its pure essence, it's invisible. You know what I'm saying? So it's a frequency that is vibrating at a certain rate. And that's why we can see it. That's why we can see one another. And the thing that I've always found interesting is when you look at the shape of the atom, look at the universe as well. How that the sun is like the nucleus, and all of the planets orbit the sun. So you see that pattern all over the place when you look into the universe. So something has put that into motion, and something that understands things has put that pattern there so that we can see and understand how those things work.
Absolutely.
And so I love Tesla's quote that you mentioned last night, that studying his life and his accomplishments has helped me to really, on a more practical level, understand how energy works, flow. And I know he was a scientist, but I think he was a very deep and spiritual individual. And I've learned a lot from looking at his work and a lot of looking at Einstein as well.
Yeah.
Even when he talks about, his equation with E equals MC squared, that's just amazing that he was able to grasp those kind of concepts. And he even figured out how to split atoms. You can't even see atoms. And during his day, he couldn't see them,
right.
But being able to work with and manipulate energy on that level can benefit life, or you can create an atomic bomb.
Right.
That's how important this topic is.
Right, because when you get into the idea of dealing with atoms and breaking them down and using them in different ways, you can go into things like gene therapy and all kinds of different sciences that medical fields are using on being able to manipulate cells and stuff to take care of harmful cells and increase positive cells. You even hear them talking about how frequencies and vibrations can help with healing, which is something that I actually have some experience with. I had a really, really bad infection a couple years ago that formed from a cyst that turned into an abscess and ruptured. I had to have a surgery, and I had a major surgical wound from the infection. Doctors told me I was going to be laid up in a recovery center, basically a nursing home, where I was getting treatment and stuff to heal for at least 6 to 8 months, if not longer, minimum. And then I would leave there and go into home health care. And under 6 months, I was declared fully healed. And the reason why is I worked with using frequencies and vibrations, mainly solfeggio frequencies. I was listening to them while I slept, and I was focusing energy and stuff from the solfeggio frequencies and stuff into the wound and into my body to allow it to help heal. Now, the doctors were amazed that I healed that quickly.
See, I believe what you did was you worked with the materials that you are made out of.
Absolutely.
I like a comment you made last night about how we're all stardust and such.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we're just cosmic energy in a suit of stardust.
Exactly. So with going back to the topic of being energy, and now I'm going to start talking about that more as being spirit. You literally were connecting with the source of all life, that vital life force, and sending and receiving that into your body. And it was allowing you to realign the cellular structure in your body so that your body could heal. Now, our bodies heal themselves. Rarely is there, I don't think, I'm not a doctor, but I don't believe there's any medication that necessarily does any healing. It's more about, they may address symptoms and such, but the body heals itself. And when you get yourself into alignment and into the right state of mind, you can allow your body to line back up with the universal source, and it can channel energy back to you. That's
Yeah.
what I was saying earlier about the universe response to, but it does that through our thoughts.
One of the things that I ended up talking with some of the medical professionals while I was going through this healing process was they talked about when you bring your thoughts and your focus in to being able to accept the treatments and the medications that's going on, and you focus in on those, that it actually allows it to work more effectively and more efficiently in helping your body heal. Your body, like you said, it heals itself. Things like antibiotics and stuff keep infection and stuff at bay so your body can continue to heal. And another thing that I did during that time was I actually I spoke to my body on a cellular level. I actively communicated with my body, talking to the cells to reproduce, to heal, to create new cells, to create new tissue, to create new skin, and to heal that wound up and closed. And like I said, they told me that I wouldn't even be into home health care until at least after the holidays, when this happened. And the end of October, I went home, had a home health care nurse, and on December 3rd, they declared me fully healed.
That's awesome. I remember when I really, I don't remember the exact year, but I remember a book that I found when I was in the church, kind of, and just really having a lot of different experiences where, I was kind of struggling with my faith in the sense where all of the things that I heard, taught, and saw just did not resonate with my life, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I began just having these thoughts, really wanting to understand the truth and really wanting to understand how to truly impact and change my life, because you always hear stories of people who have done amazing things, who may have started out in life, with a disability, or they were extremely poor, but later on in life, something happened to where they changed. And ultimately, it started with how they were thinking. And so at this particular point in time in my life, I remember I was on a Christmas break, and I was just kind of walking through a bookstore. And I glanced over and saw this book on the shelf called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph. I don't know if you're familiar with that book.
Who was it by? You cut out right there.
Joseph Murphy.
Okay. No, I have not.
Well, that book talks about how our subconscious works. And basically how the subconscious mind works is the subconscious is the level within our being that is tied to, for lack of a better analogy, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this, but it's kind of like your subconscious is connected to the universe, kind of like a fish in the ocean. You know how the fish is so connected to the ocean that it doesn't really even know it's in an ocean, in a sense. It's a part of it. We, at a subconscious level, that's where we really are connected to the universe. And he was explaining how that if you learn how to tap into the subconscious mind, you can then draw forth from the subconscious healing in your body, material things in the natural world, and you can really begin to turn around situations in your physical life the way you need them to. But it all started with operating with and learning how conscious works. And that really resonated with me at the time. So I bought that book, and I probably read the book. I think it was like 100 and something pages. I read that book in like a day. I just took time and just read that book. And the things that he talked about was, I really love how he began to explain the concept of prayer. You know, I think he had a Christian background, but it wasn't like a religious book. It was more about how he said that, you know, what people come to know prayer as is getting on their knees and, you know, holding their hands, praying and asking. But he said what prayer is scientific is when you are able to communicate with your subconscious and your subconscious responds back. And I thought that was amazing. And so what he began to explain was, we all have, you know, we're looking at each other's bodies and we have a brain, but that's just our tool to navigate the physical world with.
Right.
However, we have a spirit, and that spirit is composed of your conscious and your subconscious mind. And what the conscious mind is, it's the rational part of us, it's the part of us that thinks, it's the part that makes decisions, you know, like, do I want a hamburger tonight or do I want a taco? You know, am I going to watch Netflix or am I going to go read a book? That's the job of the conscious mind, to decide for us. Now, when you deal with elevating your life and being more of a spiritual individual, you begin to understand that we are always in a situation to where the environment is feeding us something. And, you know, if you look at politics, we're being fed, you know, whether you agree with a candidate or not, information is being given to us via the airway.
Right.
And if it's good information, it's influencing the culture, but more than likely it's bad, you know. So I used to watch the news all the time, but I just kind of stopped because it was so negative, you know, and it puts you into a negative state of mind. And going back to the law of attraction, you begin to attract that stuff because you are constantly feeding yourself. Well, the way in which that happens is the conscious mind, you allow for your conscious mind to accept, yes, I'm going to watch 2 hours of really bad news program. And the subconscious mind does not make decisions. What the subconscious does is receive and begin to work on what you have chosen to believe with the conscious. So if you get into a pattern of thinking long enough, that thought will get out of your conscious mind, make its way into your subconscious, which is the part of you that is connected with the universe and draws from the universe vital life energy to bring to pass what it is you've been continuously. And that's another aspect of how the law of attraction works, but at a more deeper level. You know, it goes beyond just what you consciously think about. You have to literally think and feel and become something before it gets into your subconscious, and then your subconscious works with the universe to bring about the physical manifestation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, one of the things that you touched on there was on the idea of spirit, and that it is the consciousness and the subconsciousness, which it goes into a lot of the beliefs that I have as well, because when you look at doing things like shamanic journeying or astral projection or anything along those lines, what you're doing is you're using that spirit energy, and that consciousness is still with you while you're doing these things. Your body may be in a trance-like state. You may even appear to be in a sleep state or a coma state or dreamlike state, but that consciousness is with you. And then when you look at the concepts of life after death, you know, we are really and truly just our consciousness, and that, you know, like you said, makes up our spirit. That spirit energy cannot cease to exist. It's one of the fundamental laws of energy is energy can never cease to exist. It can only change form.
Exactly.
So with that, it makes sense that that conscious energy would leave the body and be part of that spirit energy that travels through to life after death, and that consciousness remains with you.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to think about, like, and I make reference to shamanism a lot because that really helped me to have a holistic understanding of the universe and how the world works and the earth and things and life in general.
Right.
And I like to think of it like this, in a sense, to where, going back to the tree analogy, like I can physically see the trees in my backyard, but that's what my natural eyes are looking at, the atoms that are making up that tree.
Mm-hmm.
But my natural eyes cannot see the spirit of that. Now, if I was to step outside of this physical body, my spirit can see the spirit of that tree no different than my natural eye.
Right.
Because I have now removed the obstacle of, this 3D flesh that's prohibiting my spirit from having full expression.
Right.
But when you learn how to work with different, energies and such, you're able to still the body and allow your spirit to navigate and travel to connect on a spiritual level with that tree.
Right.
Or, if you're doing a shamanic journey, going to the lower or middle or upper world that exists simultaneously with the one that we're currently.
Right.
You just can't physically.
And when you travel to those other worlds, like we was talking about in the shamanic journey, the lower, the middle, and the upper world, each one has different spirits that are associated to it, and you interact with them energetically, and a lot of that is dependent on the way that you're focusing your energy to travel to those realms, whether you're operating at a higher frequency to ascend up to the upper realm, or you decide that you're going to descend down to the lower realm. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to operate at a lower frequency, but the way that you're traveling, your energies are coming into alignment with those realms so you can travel into them and pierce that veil between, like you said, this physical 3D and those spiritual realms that allow you to cross over and travel into those shamanic realms.
And I'm really hoping that with this particular topic of energy, and why I think it's important that we started out with this one, is that we begin to really grasp the concept that life really is more spiritual than it is natural.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the importance of understanding energy and energy work and how to deal with energy, because that's where life really is at its core. Everything that we see, if you think about your life, I'll reference another movie, like The Matrix, for an example. That is probably my favorite movie of all time. And one particular scene in The Matrix really got my attention. It was the first scene, it was not the first scene, but the scene when Neo first went back into the Matrix after they freed his mind. When they were in the car ride, do you remember that scene?
It's been a while since I've seen it, so.
Yeah. Well, there's a scene where when they first bring Neo back into the Matrix, he's in the back of a car with Trinity. And Trinity and Neo are having a conversation. And so Neo's looking out the window. He's like, that restaurant, I used to eat there. And then he's like, none of these memories were real. And then he said, what does that mean? And so Trinity looks over and says to him that the Matrix cannot tell you who you are. And what I took from that, after just really thinking about that, was who we come to know ourselves as, we really don't know who we are. Because up until now, Melvin Nix was a byproduct of where he was born, what his environment was, the things that his mother and father and neighbors and friends and coaches and every other person put into him. which caused me to think a certain way, which caused me to believe a certain way. And that's how I framed who I am. But that's not really who I am. You
Right.
know why? Because I didn't decide. So when you become a more spiritual person, you begin to learn that, one, I'm not who I've become as an individual. I may be greater than what I know myself to become. And then you begin to understand how you can even find that. And how, or you can define that for yourself. You know, it just depends on how deep you want to go.
Right.
But
And that
and
also, I mean, that really ties into the whole realm of metaphysics. As far as when you start to dive into that aspect. I don't know if you've ever read the book by Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I don't know if I asked you if you had read that last night or not when we talked.
doesn't sound familiar.
It's the first book that really got me diving into metaphysics, really really big. There was another book that opened me up to the path to start searching and seeking, but when I got my hands on that book, and it's a short little book, in there it follows the story of a seagull named Jonathan Livingston, and this he isn't happy with his life as a seagull. He thinks that there has got to be something more. And all the other gulls tell him, say, no, this is it. This we fly out off, out to the ocean, we dive down, we catch fish, we go back to the shore, we eat, we sleep, we get up, we do it again. This is our existence. This is who we are. And he started questioning everything with it. He's like, well, all right, well, the way we fish is really crappy. If we dove from a higher level into the water, we could dive deeper and we could catch better fish. So he starts experimenting with this. Finds out, even despite all the other gulls and even the elder gulls telling him, oh no, you can't do that. That's wrong. It won't ever happen. You're going to kill yourself. As he starts going through all these different processes, he starts to realize, well, what they said was wrong. And there comes a point where he ends up transcending. And he moves beyond that level to like a new plane, a new plane of existence. And when he gets there, he finds out that there's a bunch of other gulls there too. And
Wow.
these same gulls had thought the way that he had and had ascended. It wasn't just, he wasn't the only one to ever come up with this idea. That, there was other gulls in other areas that had decided, this just doesn't seem right. There's got to be something more. And it goes through, the story is really good. It goes through him learning about transcendence and ascending and really realizing that when he really looked at it, the only limitations that he had was what his imagination was able to grasp. And it really opened up the door to metaphysics, which in this, I mean, there comes a point where he starts to really work with energy and stuff as well. But it's honestly, if you haven't picked up the book, I highly suggest it. Probably $5-10 book. You can get it on Amazon, or hit up your local bookstore, and go pick it up. If they don't have a copy, they can probably order it for you. It's
I definitely want to get that book and read it. It sounds fascinating, and I love the analogy of using seagull fishing,
yeah,
to explain metaphysics. I think that's clever.
yeah. It was written by Richard Bach.
The thing that really got me exposed to metaphysics, as I was kind of mentioning to you last night, was this movie called What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yep.
And I watched that movie so many times and learned something every time I saw it. But the thing that really stood out that helped me to understand at an energetic level how things work is when they talked about the observer concept. And what the observer concept is they were explaining how the universe is basically made out of energy that responds to us. But something decides what kind of direction that we go in or that energy goes to. And oftentimes it's not your conscious thinking. It's more at a subconscious. And what they brought up in the movie was what was referred to as the double slit experiment, where I don't remember the scientist's name, but what they did was they were trying to determine how electrons would behave in a particular environment. So they put two slits or a few slits in a piece of metal, and they shot marbles through it, and they had something on the back, like a wall or something, that would see the pattern that those marbles made. So once they shot the marbles through those slits, the marbles made a pattern that resembled the slit that it went through. Okay. And so then the next thing they decided to do was to send a liquid through that would send waves. And notice how that the wave pattern would be displayed on the back of the wall. So they were like, okay, marbles make this pattern, waves make this. But then what they decided to do was to use electrons. So, when you get into energy and electricity, you understand that electrons are nothing more than particles that get excited and they move in a direction and they attract like a magnet. So they started shooting electrons through this same experiment. But you would think that, with our fundamental understanding of the atom, that electron would be like a hard marble. So they initially thought that electrons would have made the slit pattern because they went through the slit.
Right.
What happened was the electrons made a wave pattern. And they were like, how in the world are these electrons making a wave pattern? Because they're basically like balls, so they should have made this other pattern. So what they did was they put a measuring device that would see what happened at an anatomical level when the electron went through the slit and hit the wall. When they set that device up to measure what was going on, they discovered that the electrons went from making a wave pattern to making a slit pattern. And they were like, holy crap, how in the world is this possible? That all we did was put something to monitor what was happening. And that changed the pattern that the electrons was making. So what that allowed them to see was that electrons are intelligent, and that by intention and observation, they were able to direct the behavior of electrons. Well, what does that mean to you and I? Well, our subconscious mind is what they refer to in quantum mechanics as the observer effect, where subconsciously we are making those choices that are attracting or repelling
Right.
situations and circumstances into our life that line up in accordance with how we fundamentally think. And when I learned that lesson and saw that, and then I took the information from the book on the power of the subconscious mind, that sent me completely off the scales with my knowledge and being able to do something practical with changing the direction of my life. And, I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but, I can tell you story after story how I may have started in one place and now I'm at a totally different level by applying this knowledge.
And I don't know if it was in What the Bleep Do I Know, or if it was in another movie along those lines. Give me just a second. I'm looking something up. I believe it was called this, or no, was it The Secrets of Water?
Is it possibly the, I think, Emotion of Water, maybe? The Japanese scientist that did the experiments?
Yes. I'm trying to think of his name right now, and that's why I'm trying to pull this up.
Emoto. His last name's Emoto. I don't remember how to pronounce his first name.
Give me a second, and I will find it right here. Because I finally found it. Masasaru, Masaru Emoto. Okay. And so you're familiar with this experiment that he done.
Yes.
And what they done was they took water and they put it into bottles, and at first they just put labels on it that said things like love or hate or anger or peace, joy, different emotions. different feelings. And then they would focus those kinds of feelings and emotions towards that water. And energetically, those emotions would affect that water differently, so that when they froze it and looked at the crystalline structure of the water that was given the positive emotions such as love and joy and happiness had very beautiful, very gorgeous crystalline structures that were very symmetrical. They had a lot of kind of the sacred geometrical shapes and stuff to them. Whereas the ones that was directed with hate and anger and like rage and stuff like that, sadness, and those ones had deformed crystalline structures. There was no symmetry to them at all. They were very broken up and just um they had no real structure to them. And I found that to be an absolutely amazing study of how these energies affect water. And then to take that to another level is our bodies are made up primarily of water.
Absolutely.
So if these energies are affecting water in these studies like they're doing, what are those energies doing to affect us in our day-to-day life? You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know personally, and I'm sure you've done this as well, and I like to encourage the people who are watching to just take some time and really, just take 30 minutes out of your day and think about what you allow into your life. What are the qualities of your thoughts alone? Because that, in fact, is shaping who we are. Going back to the analogy that you just used, when they talked about the water, those monks just put intention.
Yep.
And that's all that they did. And I think he said they prayed over them and things of that nature. Well, not only are we exposing ourselves to a very sick world and very sick environment that's feeding us constantly these types of things, but think about the words that we speak, not only out of our mouths, but our internal life. When we have a situation, we go, oh, don't be stupid. Exactly. Think about what you're doing to you. Or when you're talking to a friend of yours and you say, like, you look beautiful to me, what that does to me. So,
absolutely.
I'm not a practitioner.
I saw a social experiment kind of along those lines. A photographer went out and he took pictures of people. He'd take one picture and then he would tell them they were beautiful, and he would take another picture of them the second after he told them they were beautiful. And the change that you saw in that person as soon as he said you are beautiful to them was just, they would smile, they would have a glow about them, and you could just see that they just radiated positivity.
And on an energetic level, if you think about this, I know you were mentioning that you kind of understood Wicca and some of those. Well, when you're dealing with spell work, you're dealing with putting intentions out, and you're manipulating energy.
Yep.
But think about the fact that the word spell, when we get spelling, when we're literally dealing with words,
yes,
we are embedding intention.
Yes,
and words, sending energies out.
The words we speak is actually spell casting.
Exactly.
Is spell casting is literally the words that you speak. I'm looking around. Give me a second. I actually want to grab a notebook that's over here that's got a quote on it from Terence McKenna that goes right along this lines, and it's perfect for this. So give me just a second.
Okay.
I thought I had it here by my desk, but I didn't. This is a quote from Terence McKenna. It says the syntactical nature of reality, the real secret of magic, is that the world is made of words. And if you know the words that the world is made of, you can make it whatever you wish.
There's a couple of scriptures in the Bible that really got me to understand that concept. Even when I left Christianity and things of that nature, I kind of mentioned to you that I still kind of study some of the principles in the Bible because I believe it's a very metaphysical book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scripture that says the power of life and death is in the tongue.
Yes.
And it didn't say that, the power of life and death is in a shotgun or in a baseball bat. It said it's in your tongue.
Right.
And think about how powerful that is, that you can create life or death with the words that. But I believe the reason why that happens, going back to our topic of energy, is because on a frequency level and on an energetic level, we are tuning to the frequency of those words.
Yes.
And so whatever you are sending out or receiving, you're attracting or, putting out into the universe something that's vibrating with the intention that's paired on an energetic level with the words you've spoken.
Right. Like what you was talking about, the self-talk, the way we talk to ourselves. When we talk to ourselves negative, our vibrational frequency lowers. When we speak to ourselves in a positive manner, in an uplifting manner, our vibrational energy raises. And so our energy is affected by the way that we think and the way that we feel and the way that we talk. And
Absolutely.
and when we feel good about ourselves, we have a tendency, like when we're feeling good, when we're happy, we have a tendency to smile. What happens when you walk down the street with a smile on your face?
Other people respond the same way 90% of the time.
Yep.
Even if they're sad, they see you smile and they brighten up.
Yep.
I see that happen all the time.
Yeah. And
it's rare. You'll find that one person, that no matter how much, you could grab the door for them or whatever, they just fixed on having a bad day. So you just kind of let them do it.
Yeah.
More than likely, the other person will reciprocate.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's interesting we're kind of talking about this in terms of energy because I want to talk sound a little. Because when we speak words, we're actually sending out sound vibrations. Are you familiar with the term cymatics?
Yes.
So you've seen how they've done those experiments where they'll put sand granules or salt granules.
Yes. Oh. Guys, it looks like we just lost Melvin. Let me work on getting him back. Here he is. Melvin, you there?
Yeah, it looked like we dropped out.
Yeah, you dropped out for a second. There you go. You're back.
Okay.
Wow. Hey, with all the crazy weather and stuff that's been around, that doesn't surprise me that happened.
Yeah, I was about to say, man, the gremlins are working hard tonight. That's what I call it when I have technical problems. I say I have gremlins in my machine. Like, it reminds me of the old Bugs Bunny episode with the gremlin that was tearing up his airplane.
Yeah.
Going way back, date myself. But anyway, going back to cymatics, how that they would take sound vibration and basically if they tuned into one frequency, the sand or the salt or whatever those granules were would make a particular pattern. Sometimes it'd be sacred geometry or different things. And if they kept changing the frequency, the particles would keep making different patterns.
Yes.
And so that just proves even more so how that sound vibration works at an energetic level. When we speak words, we are energetically affecting our environment and affecting our body as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up too, because it really, I mean, it's like I said, that friend that came over what I talked about earlier, the one that came over and she was so negative, everything she was saying was negative. I mean, I was in a good mood before she showed up, and while she was here, I was having to fight basically this wave of negativity that was coming off of her, and you could physically feel it. It was like a physical force coming off of her because she was in such a negative spot that everything that was coming out of her mouth, not one point in time did she say, hey, thank you for letting me come in and get warm, or she didn't have anything to say positive. She got a hold of someone to come pick her up, and it was, she was negative about everything with it, because how long it was going to take them to get ready to come get her. And everything was negative. Everything was negative. There wasn't one positive thing coming out of this person. And it was...
I've been there myself.
Oh,
I've
I
had
know
times in my life.
we all have at some point in time have been in a point where our mindset is so negative and we are so caught up in the negative that it's hard for us to see anything positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, and like you said, that energetic field that comes from what we speak, like you said, if you say, well, I should have known better on that, I'm stupid, that affects your energetic field, that the energies and the vibrations off of that word affects how you feel. And
Absolutely.
so when you speak to yourself differently, you say, well, I didn't know that, but now that I do, I got a better understanding of it. Or I didn't know that particular information. Now it's something I know that I can look at and address.
Exactly.
And it's
And
a matter...
I think...
It's really a matter of just changing how you speak to yourself and the world around you.
And I think that this is a good segue into another thing I wanted to bring up about energy, because it's right in alignment with what I was going to say. When we deal with energy, it's great to use, probably one of the most basic things you can think about is a magnet, right? And electromagnetism and how that...
Right.
Essentially, when you deal with electricity, for example, if I have an extension cord, what that extension cord allows to happen, it's got copper on it, and not to break it all the way down, but essentially what happens with an extension cord is connected to a wall outlet that sends power through, it basically sends charged electrons through that cable to whatever your device is going to be that you want to power. And what happens, though, is they put an insulator on that extension cord, because that extension cord is generating what's known as an electromagnetic field.
Yes.
Now, with electromagnetic field, they generate all kinds of information. And the reason why they put those things, especially if you deal with computers and talk about networking and things of that nature, those cables have to be insulated a certain way, because information is going so much that you can have, if they didn't make the cables the way that they did, you could be receiving information that you shouldn't be getting with that particular cable run. So
let's go back to what was happening at the beginning of the show before we went live, when I was messing with my phone and having issues with my phone. What was happening? We was getting energetic frequencies coming through that was interrupting and causing static feedback to come through my equipment, because of signals being sent through my phone. And so it was that energetic field was interfering and giving bad signals through everything, because those, I don't know what exactly is going on. There might be a cable that's maybe not placed properly tight or something, or the shielding on something, the insulation on it might not be proper, and it was allowing that frequency to interfere and bother it. And so, and
yeah.
that was nothing more than an energetic reaction.
Well, let's look at the Earth. The Earth is nothing but a big electromagnet, right? It has a north and a south, and it spins around on its axis. And as it does that, it sets off certain forces like gravity. The Earth has, at its North Pole, where you can see the northern lights, the aurora borealis, that's basically just looking at the Earth's magnetic field, because of all the energy the Earth is. Well, with electromagnetism, it can attract and it can repel as well. And when you think in terms of that, think about our body. Think about who we are as a species. Our body has an electrical system on the inside of it. Our brain and our spinal cord sends electrical signals that respond to our nervous system, that responds to everything that we deal with. And on a spiritual level, or if you want to just deal with energetically, when those things are happening, I believe there's a quote a scientist made about how nothing physical, no chemical response in the body can happen until an energetic one.
And what was that you cut out right at the end of it? You said an energetic.
Before any chemical, like in our bodies, for example, before we have an emotion or before we take a breath or anything happens, an energetic occurrence must take place first. And usually that happens within the mind. There's a thought that precedes, I'm going to sneeze, or I'm going to take a breath, or I'm going to walk or do whatever action I'm going to do. A thought takes place. Well, thoughts are energetic frequency.
Right.
And so when you have that thought or you say that word electronically within your body is sending signals that are responding to whatever that thought was or whatever what you said was. And it's doing so chemically. And so what happens is if a person is in a negative thought pattern, just like an electromagnet is putting out an electromagnetic field, we are generating what, people in the spiritual, realm of things call your aura, or scientists call it your biosphere. Every living thing has it because the energy that we have going on within us generates an electric field that, oh, you have a buddy there.
Oh, yeah, this is Tanner.
So cool.
Yeah.
The electromagnetic field that our body generates is either attracting to us something good or bringing something to us that's bad, because at an energetic level, our aura, and that's what really begins to work with chakra, based on how you're thinking, pulls in energy from the universe to correspond with the condition of your biosphere or your aura or your electromagnetic field.
Right.
So when that person was in a negative vibration, when she came into contact with you, your energetic field began to interact with hers. All of us do this, but all of us aren't aware of it. You can walk into a room, and sometimes if a person has been having a bad day or there's been an argument in a room, if you're pretty sensitive, you can feel the energy in that room. Or without even talking to a person, you can just kind of walk by them and you can kind of sense,
oh, yeah,
this person's having a terrible day. Well, why does that happen? It's because your energetic field is interacting with and coming into contact with their energetic. And so you are essentially reading information, like we were just saying with the cable. We're picking up on that information that the other person is giving off at an energetic level.
Yeah.
So the thing that we want to endeavor to do is to raise our energy, raise our vibration so that we are vibrating on a higher spectrum to where we are connected with the good that's in the world, with the frequencies that are in alignment with what we actually want in our lives rather
than what you cut out right there.
What we do not want.
Okay. All right. I wanted to make sure that people heard what you were saying there with that. And absolutely agree with that.
And when you think in terms of the body, you deal with the 5 physical senses. Well, what they're actually doing is translating vibration.
Right.
Our eyes scientifically translate photon particles. That's what we're doing. We're responding to those vibrations. Our ears translate sound vibration. Our tongue sends out sound vibration. And all of those things, when we touch, we are interacting with the matter that is around us. So when you come into alignment with that, especially if you start to live in the present moment and become an observer of life rather than just a responder to life, you can get in tune with these things to the point to where you come into a flow. And that's where I believe, when you talk about psychic abilities and gifts and things of that nature really come online within us, is we learn how to sync up with and flow with the rhythm and harmony that the universe is in. And we align ourselves energetically to that rather than letting the world tell us who we are, influence our energy, and push us in directions that we don't want to go in.
Absolutely. We're coming up to about the hour and a half point in the show. If you're okay with it, I'd like to go ahead and open up to questions and answers for anyone that's in the audience that's watching and
Absolutely.
viewing. So, if anybody out there has any questions that you would like to ask, I know there was one that was asked earlier, so let me just scroll back and look. Um, Nagert asked, "Can we always speak in the right frequency to express the positive sound waves?"
I believe that it's all about intention. And when I say that, I mean it's really developing a habit in a sense. I believe yes, you can absolutely do that, but is it easy? No. I believe that if you really become a more spiritual person, and I'm not saying religious, I'm saying you become more familiar with these principles and concepts that we've talked about during this discussion, and you begin to see how they work, and you learn how they work, and you become aware of the fact that they even exist in the first place. You can then set out as an intention, I'm going to be a more spiritual person. So I'm going to watch how I'm thinking. And you can take it so far as to go, I'm going to watch what I allow myself to ingest.
Right,
I'm going to watch what I allow myself to listen to. And when you get into a pattern of that, your words will come into alignment with that, and you will then begin to speak consistently in a
right.
way in which you are giving out the energy that is in alignment with the right kind of frequency. So I totally believe you can do that, but I believe you have to condition yourself.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. And even in doing the plant medicine work, with doing that, one of the things that they talk about is when you go into it, they talk about set and setting. And of course, settings talking about your physical place, meaning that you're in some place that you're safe, you feel comfortable, you have all the faculties and facilities around you that you need to be able to be comfortable while doing so. But set is referring to your mindset, to the way that you're thinking going into it. And I've heard of people saying, oh, when I used, this or that, I had a bad trip or I had a bad journey and it was dark and it was bad and it was negative. Well, a lot of times when you go back and you talk to them, they were already in that mindset, if not consciously, subconsciously, they was already in that mindset. They was holding that negativity within them, and they didn't consciously look at putting themselves in a positive place to be able to go and do this. Now, from my experiences doing a lot of plant medicine work, working with ayahuasca, working with psilocybin and these other different sacraments and stuff through my spiritual path, not always is everything, nice and lovey-dovey and peaceful and everything. You do get into doing some of the shadow work and some of the darker work. And that is a process that is every bit as much of the spiritual path and the spiritual work that needs to be done, and it's also part of the healing path as well. If you don't embrace um if you don't deal with the darkness, you can't deal with the light. You've got to be able to handle both of them because they're part of each other. And we all have light and dark within us. We all have,
Absolutely.
the those aspects to us. And in dealing with them, you've got to be willing to um focus in on the dark and the shadow work every bit as much as you do the light and the light work.
Right. When I started looking into energy work and such, that's when I gained an appreciation of the yin and yang symbol
Oh, absolutely.
because it symbolizes the fact that you have, you know, light and dark that are intertwined and
Yes.
intermixed. You also have male and female
Yep.
that are intertwined and intermixed. And so you can't have light without darkness and vice versa. And if you really think about it, I was talking to a friend about this, and we were just having a discussion about good and evil. And he made a very interesting comment. He said, well, think about it this way. If there was no evil, there would be no motion that happened in the world at all. The world would just basically still. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that 100%, but he did make a fascinating point that, you know, things move, things are alive. You have life and you have death. You have beginning and you have end. So
Absolutely.
everything interconnects and kind of does this dance in a sense.
Well, the way I see it is, if there is no evil, how would you know what good was?
Yeah,
If there
that's a
was
good
no
point.
dark, how would you know what light was? If there and Demian and myself have talked about this in some of the past podcasts. We've talked about, if you haven't experienced heartache, you're not going to really understand love.
It's true.
You might understand the concept of love, but you're not going to be able to truly appreciate the um the true feelings of love. If you don't experience sorrow, then you don't know what joy is like. It's a mundane feeling without having experienced the opposite to it.
And obviously we have the capacity to know those feelings. You know, I've heard, I think Tony Robbins explained it this way. He said that that emotion are just energy and motion. So when you have an angry emotion, I mean, it's natural to feel anger, but there's a reason why you're feeling that feeling. And more than likely, all of our emotions are just messages in a sense that are giving us information. You know, so there's a reason that all that to say, even the dark aspects of us aren't necessarily bad
Right.
when you understand that they are a part of you. They may just be a part of you that you have to listen to and learn, if that makes.
Oh, you cut out right there at the very end. You said to listen to, and you just cut out.
Oh, listen to and learn how to work with those
Yes.
aspects of.
Yes. And that's true. I mean, to say that we're never going to get angry, or we're never going to get upset, or we're never going to be sad, or we're never going to be, any of those things, really narrows us down, as human beings. It is when you give yourself over fully to those emotions, where and you lose control to those emotions, where they become negative, where they
Exactly.
become detrimental. um you know Feeling those isn't necessarily a bad thing. It is learning how to control yourself while you're feeling those is what you need to focus on.
Yes.
you know
And also to see what that emotion is trying to tell you. You
right.
know, I've heard like when you get angry, and I've not just heard, I've learned this. You know, when you get angry, that anger is telling you that a boundary of yours, or there's something going on that needs your attention.
Right.
So it's not to make you get mad and want to fight. It's
Right.
it's more about, this emotion is telling you, hey, something's going on that needs your attention, and you have to pay attention to that and address it. But once you understand that, is when you can actually elevate that emotion and work with that emotion rather than becoming a victim to the negative.
Right. Like going back to martial arts and stuff, we've talked about that quite a bit. My martial arts instructor talked about, when you get into a fight, you're going to get angry. When you, whatever triggered you to get to the point of fighting will bring up anger and will bring up rage within you. And if you lose yourself to those emotions and you do not learn how to control them and how to focus them, you're going to lose yourself in the fight. You're not going to be able to control yourself. You're not going to be able to think. You're going to be fighting blind. You've heard the phrase a blind rage. because you can't focus in on anything else because it consumes you completely. And when you learn to control those, and those are energetic reactions, and when
Right?
you
They
learn
are.
how to control that energetic reaction, one of the things that I ended up doing was, my instructor told me I was a very scary fighter because as we would be sparring, he would do things to try to anger me and to kick me into rage. And he would see me narrow that down into a really, really focused determination that I wouldn't give into it, but I used it to focus myself. I used it to um, I would pull it. I learned how to work with it, which was through a lot of the meditation practices that we would go through. And I learned how to work with it to heighten my senses, to allow me to focus my energies, and how to control that anger and that rage in such a way that it made me a better fighter in that situation because I didn't give into it. I learned how to control it, and I used it for me instead of allowing it to work against me.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the other things that I love about Star Wars. Going back to that as a reference, any good Jedi is always told what anger and all those negative emotions leads to the dark side of the
Yeah.
Force. And I love the fact that part of a Jedi's training is to focus on what they are feeling, focus on their emotions,
Yes.
focus on and to tune into what they're feeling. You would think that Jedi training would be about, how brilliant you can be with your lightsaber and, how many flips you can do and things of that nature. But no, it's focused on get in touch with, sense what's going on. And I always thought that was incredible. They were, showing those kinds of concepts. And even with martial arts, when you study the warrior code and things of that nature, it's not about being aggressive. It's not about, just dominating. It's more about being in tune and in touch.
Yeah, I mean the deadliest warriors are those who are at peace even in the midst of conflict. They have a peace amongst themselves, within themselves, even in the middle of battle, in the middle of conflict. And that peace, that internal peace that they have, allows them to be very focused with what they're doing. It allows them to maintain control. It allows them to focus their energies and allow that energies to flow. And I know that as we go into some of the series and we start discussing things like chi, and we discuss things like the chakras and stuff, there's certain things that block those the energy flow from those chakras. Actually, have you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, the cartoon?
Absolutely. I'm a fan of that series.
Do you remember when
Yeah.
Aang went to the guru that was teaching him how to unblock his chakras? And it
Yes.
was he used the pools that had the sludge and stuff in them, and he was using it as an example of how the energy flows, and that the sludge was representing things like anger and sadness and sorrow, and that was blocking his energetic flow. And that's why he could not raise the avatar energies through his chakras and activate the avatar state. Yes,
Well, when
guys,
you
we
think
are
about
geeks here.
and again, that series is, in my opinion, not for children. I've learned so much from that
Oh,
cartoon, but
when you look at it from a spiritual standpoint, there is some hardcore spiritual teachings in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Aang has astral projected. He's met with ascended masters. I mean, he does all sorts
He
of. He
has
even
tapped into
communicates with
past
his
life
higher self.
regression.
Yeah, I mean that cartoon's amazing.
Yes.
But in dealing with the chakras, the reason why I thought it was so cool to start out by talking about energies is because we need to know if a person is saying that a chakra or is a spinning wheel of light that is channeling energy. Well, you need to know what the energy is. Where's the energy coming from?
Right.
How does it even work? So
It's that
um,
cosmic energy
when
that I
you
was talking about that we're made up of.
Yeah. And when you're talking about raising Kundalini, with Kundalini representing the feminine energy, representing a serpent that once made active will rise up and pierce through all of the chakras. And once it reaches the ground, a person is said to become enlightened. Well,
Well,
if
with
you
the
never,
Kundalini energies, isn't it the twin snakes that one represents the masculine and one represents the feminine as they're crawling up through, spiraling and coming up through the chakras?
there are many representations of that, but yes, that's where we get the caduceus from, the medical symbol.
Yes.
And then you deal with the snake at the bottom of the root chakra, dealing with Kundalini. But then this symbol is everywhere when you think about it, because even in the Bible and other religious beliefs, there's a snake, in the Garden of Eden. And what does that snake do? That snake is a bridge between higher and lower knowledge.
Right.
When you think about what the sin was that Adam and Eve had actually committed, it wasn't that they bit of a fruit. It was that their conscience became aware of the knowledge of good.
Yeah.
That was the thing that was the actual travesty in that story. But who led them to that? It was the snake.
Right. It led them to that point of a higher consciousness.
Yes. And in lots of metaphor and spiritual teachings, the snake is symbolizing a bridge, in a sense, between your lower and higher self or lower and higher knowledge.
Yeah. And in most spiritual beliefs, besides Christianity, the snake is looked at as a very positive aspect. It's looked at from a very the snake or the serpent, different interpretations in different places. But it's looked at as a very wise creature and a very knowing creature because, like you said, it's that bridge. It brings you from the lower to the upper, um, knowledge and consciousness.
And so when we start really talking about the chakras, we're going to be dealing with, now that we've learned what this energy is, we learned that it's from the universe. It's the spiritual life force of the universe itself. And one of the things that I did mention earlier was that energy permeates everything. It's all around us. It is everywhere. And I love how, going back to my geeky Star Wars reference, and I think it was Empire Strikes Back, where Yoda was explaining to Luke how the Force is in everything,
Right.
and that the Force is alive, and how that the Jedi can use the Force as an ally. And when you take that little movie reference and look at your life and look at the universe is all around. The
Right.
universe is not only giving us life, but it is giving life to everything else. And we can come into alignment with and use the universe as an ally in that
Right.
minute.
And I can't remember which one of the Jedi Masters said it. It might have been Yoda, but when they was talking about the Force, they said it moves through us and it moves around us. You
I
know,
think that was Yoda that said that. Either he or Qui-Gon. But
I was back and forth between those two, and I wasn't 100% sure because I'm like, was either Yoda saying it to Luke or was Qui Gon saying it to Obi-Wan?
yeah,
And they was talking about how it is a living energy that moves in around through every living creature, everything. And it really is a really good example using that as an analogy for how this cosmic energy that resides within us and within everything in existence, that you know it, it's really just a great concept that you see in that movie on how they brought that about and put that in there.
yes, someone did their homework. But um, yeah, exactly. And when you really, you know, think about that in terms of our lives and think about that in terms of the universe, that's all the universe is at its core. It's like the, and it's alive and it's everywhere and it's producing more life. And so when you want to elevate your life and begin to make positive changes, you want to learn how the universe works, get into alignment with you, begin to channel and work with that energy
Absolutely.
yourself.
Absolutely. Guys, we are coming up on the last 10 minutes of the show right now. So if anyone has any questions that they want to get in for Melvin on the discussion tonight, please, please, please ask them now, and I will relay them over to him. And we're going to be wrapping up here in just about 10 minutes. I mean, we can continue to talk until someone asks a question, and then I'll let you know.
Oh, I just kind of had the Jeopardy music going in my head, kind of waiting on the question to pop up. But yeah, I think that this is very fascinating that you started this body of work and you are working to, get people's awareness kind of opened up to where they can see and understand, metaphysical concepts and things that are affecting and impacting our lives, but a lot of people don't talk about,
Right.
or they don't discuss them in a way in which the average person can learn and do something.
Right.
Because as you and I kind of talked yesterday, I've been to meetings, I've paid money for things where, they'll say, well, come and learn about, and you leave knowing nothing.
Right. And, like I said, the tagline for the show for Breaking Reality is challenging people's perceptions or challenging your perception of the world around you. And so it's not about changing your belief system. I'm not here to try to sway anyone into one belief system or another. I'm not trying to get you, if you're a Christian, I'm not trying to get you to leave Christianity. If you're Wiccan, I'm not trying to get you to leave that. If you're whatever your belief systems, I'm not trying to convert you from one to another. All I want to do with this show is challenge the way that you look at things, to give you a different perspective and a different way to look at the world around you that we normally don't. And I have found out that in my own experiences through doing this, which happened through being around a lot of my mentors, through doing lots of studying, through reading, through diving into metaphysics, diving into the path of the mystic, and it has led me to the point of I look at the world differently than what I used to, and my life personally seems to be richer and more full because of that. And so if I can challenge someone else's perceptions through having this conversation with guests on these different topics, if we can discuss these questions that we normally don't ask or these topics that we don't look at per se, and we can approach them differently, then that's what I'm here for. And like I said, we're going to have you back for multiple shows. We just have really started scratching the surface of what we're really going to dive into. We're going to dive into the chakras. We're going to dive into Kundalini. We're going to dive into talking about chi work and stuff like that. And as we get into these, it's going to be, more intense conversations. And like you said, we're building that foundation with tonight's show to be able to go into these topics deeper with a better understanding of what we're working with.
And even in my personal work, if anyone's interested, if they go to my website, newyou.com, I have several videos on the website where I've done some of the teachings where I may have taken, 5-10 minutes and broken down some of these concepts where I've talked about energy, where I've talked about, how we respond to the universe, a number of different things of that nature. So if anyone's interested in looking a little bit deeper at some of the things that I've already kind of covered off, they can find that information.
Spell your website for them so they know how it is spelled.
Okay, it's New You, but the way that I spell it is P, N as in Nancy, E as in Edward, U as in Uncle. and then the word you, YOU.com. And I took that word new from the Greek word pneuma, which means spirit, because on that channel, I talk about how we are spiritual beings and how you can elevate your life if you learn to work with.
Excellent. As we get ready to wrap up here for the evening, I want to say if anyone wants to, if you want to stay in contact with what we're doing with the show, you want to join in on the community, um, join into the Discord. There's a link down below that you can click and you can join the Discord for the Breaking Reality community. And in there, I have a listing of bios for the guest, and there are links to Melvin's website and also his Facebook group where you can connect with Melvin and talk to him more about his work and what he's doing. You also do a podcast yourself, I believe, correct? Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's the same thing. New you. It's on all the different platforms.
right. So if you guys want to go and check out the episodes of the podcast that he has done, that is the avenue to head to. Also, it's a good area to just get into, and we can have communications and discussions and on these different topics and stuff. Hi, buddy. Yes. Um, yeah. Here's a happy dog for you.
Oh, I see. I have two cats, but I can't let them in here because they would want to be part of the probably do more damage than the gremlins have done tonight.
Well, Tanner is definitely always part of the show for the most part, and I tell you what, I know some are still here, and then some of the other people are still here. There's something that I started doing on the gaming streams, and it's a channel point redemption with Tanner. It's called Howling with Tanner, and I howl and he howls along with me. Um,
Oh
and
wow!
and honestly, one of the things with dogs when they howl, it's a community, it's a pack building thing. It builds community, and it's also how they call the pack home. It's how they
Wow!
call
I didn't
them
know that.
how they call them together, and so it's one of the things we do. It's also really cute too. So let me see if I can get him to howl with me tonight. Titi, you ready to howl? Yes. All right, let's howl. Ow! Ow! Come on, stop chewing on my face. Ow! 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 Ow!
That's awesome.
We give him a little howling with Tanner, Hunty. Yeah, but I mean, it's yeah. See, Summers there saying "I woo" in the chat. But yeah, so we just got a few minutes here left in the show. Melvin, I want to thank you so much for being here tonight for the conversations that we've had. Just not here tonight, but you and me talked for several hours last night and stuff. We had a great talk. I have a feeling we're going to have lots more talks, both on the podcast and off. Um, can I tell people what we talked about a little bit last night, right at the end of our conversation?
Absolutely. Go
Um,
for it.
Guys, me and Melvin are talking about starting a. We had discussed a men's group, but I mean, we could open it up to everyone. To be honest, I wouldn't mind opening it up, but we have been talking about starting a men's group in order to encourage each other in our spiritual paths and down through these different studies and stuff. And it would be a group of people coming together to have discussions, be supportive of one another, to just open up these different avenues of discussion. It wouldn't be something that we would be broadcasting on stream or anything. We'd probably do them over like a Zoom style meeting or something like that. And it would be, where we dive into some of these topics in a deeper, more personal level. Um, do you have anything that you would like to add in on that topic that we discussed last night?
I just think that it's the concept of doing that is a great thing. I think is needed. because the time in which we live now, as I said earlier, the world is sick, literally and metaphorically. And you just never know where an individual is sometimes, especially now that we've kind of, even though we're not restricted to being home, but we kind of still are, sheltering in a. And so you really don't know what everyone's going through. And sometimes people are isolated dealing with various things, and you just never know how helpful it is for them just to be able to see another face and to see that they're not the person that's going through something. And they may find answers there, or just a situation where they can get some chest, which gives them a little bit of a better day, to keep moving. When you first mentioned that idea to me, I thought that was a great concept.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that, scheduling wise and such, we can be able to pull it off. I think it'd be
Yeah, I do too, and I definitely, if any of you that watch this are interested in getting involved in that, you contact me through the Discord, or you can find me on Facebook under Breaking Reality the Show, on or I'm on Facebook under Breaking Reality the Show. There will be links in the YouTube video when I put this up on YouTube that you can look at too. But the easiest way is the Discord link that's located down below. I'm always on Discord when when I get up in the morning. One of the first things I do is I bring up Discord, and I'm in the community pretty much all day long. So if you have a question, you can message me. We can talk about it. It is a thing that me and Melvin are both in the Eastern time zone in the United States. So it would have to be, when we do set this up, it will be something that is set up in that time frame. But it is something that we are looking at doing and bringing about, and it's definitely something that we're discussing, and we definitely will keep you guys updated as we're getting into it. But if any of you are interested in it, let us know too, because that will allow us to try to figure out what time frames are going to work best for people, and what will work good for us, what will work good for you, and we can start trying to bring this into reality. But once again, Melvin, I want to thank you for being here tonight. It has been absolutely amazing having you on the show, having this discussion with you, and it is the first of many that I know we are going to have. I want to thank all the viewers that joined in with us tonight and interacted with us, that showed up, and I think that's pretty much it for the night.
It's been a pleasure, and I definitely look forward to having further discussion and learning some stuff as well.
Absolutely.
It's been awesome.
I learn a lot through these shows too. I mean, I really do learn quite a bit as we dive in through these.
As the old statement goes, iron sharpens irons.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Totally. So that and appreciate.
Thank you so much, Melvin. I really appreciate you being here tonight and stuff. So everybody, thank you for coming out tonight. I am looking at trying to do the Friday night forum show coming up this Friday at 9 p.m. That will run from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern time. I will update that on the Facebook and on the Discord channel to let you guys what's going on with that. If that does not happen, the next show will be Monday at 7 p.m. And give me just a second and I will let you know who will be here. We will have David Cannon with us that night, and we are going to be discussing David's path of personal transformation through spirituality. So that is going to be the topic for Monday night that we're going to be discussing. And I just want to say once again, Melvin, thank you for coming out, for giving us your time and your knowledge and sharing it with us. And we will see you all later. Have a good night.
Alrighty, guys. Have a great one.